Hello and welcome. Anybody here not heard me speak before? Good. Welcome. So, tonight's event is in two parts, and now three parts. First part is I'm going to describe what it is I do and how body language works. How it works to improve our body language, both internally and externally. Then YBNL Poet Emeritus Carol Poole is going to read a poem. And then we have a member event, which is just casual. You can ask your questions and meet faculty and find out who the other members are. Hello. It's our newest member, Zola. Cheers. I was born with a heart murmur, and I was 3. I was told to be gone at 4. 4, I was told to be gone at 5. And at 5, I was told to be gone at 6. 6, I was told to be gone at 7. And at 7, they said, you know what? Maybe we don't spend so much time in physical education. Maybe like slow down a little bit. When I was 12, they started keeping me out of gym class. So I would get to sit on the bench where everybody else ran around the field. And there's a lot of concern about my heart just giving out at any time. When I was 15, cardiologist said, yeah, your heart murmur is not getting any better, finally. And I said, if I didn't get an operation in 10 years, I'd be dead. So at 15, I changed my life focus from getting an education and chasing girls and buying a car and a house. And I focused purely on spirituality and trying to figure out, what am I doing here? What's going on? How can I fix this? And whatever else I could, come across. I never found anything that was really jaw-dropping until I met a fellow by the name of Patrick Collins, who's now passed away 15 years ago, maybe. But I went and heard him speak, and he spoke about body language and about how he was able to shift body language. And I thought, okay, well, I'll sign up for a session. I'll check it out. I went to see him. I laid down on the table, and he walked down the table a couple of times, and he held up his finger like this so I'd look at it. And as soon as I looked at it, he pushed on my solar plexus really hard. And it hurt. And when he pushed, he said, hey, Brian, the first time you ever asked a girl out on a date, did she laugh in your face? And when he did, the image of this girl laughing in my face popped up. This girl, Carol, when I was 11 years old. And before I could push away the feeling of shame that came with being laughed at in my face in front of my friends, it was gone. Like the tension left my body. I suddenly felt lighter. And I just said, thank you. And I didn't realize what had happened, but I felt lighter and I felt better. So I went home. And then that night, my friends invited me to the bar. I met them there, and I got myself a beer. And in just a couple of minutes, I started talking to some woman about something I don't know. Another woman shows up and start talking to her. And pretty soon, I had 4 women in front of me, and they're all vying for my attention, laughing at my stupid jokes. And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I'm not shy. I had been shy my whole life up until that time, or at least from the age of 11 until then. And when that happened, I basically committed to figuring out what it was my teacher had done. And my teacher was born left brain dead. He did not understand language. He didn't have an intellect. Everything he understood about life, he understood by feeling his body. So he looked at somebody and he could just feel a bunch of information about that person. When he was, well, I don't need to tell you a whole story about him, but Patrick was an amazing individual who, when he did these body language talks, he could not explain what he was doing. He would just say, hey, that's body language, basically. And then he would have somebody up on the front of the room, and he would write on the board behind them, some things from their life history that they thought were hidden. And then he would ask them, oh, how many operations have you had? And they'd say, oh, 6. And then he would have already written 6 on the board for a number of operations. It was truly magical and incredible. And then when people ask, well, how do you adjust? How do you get the body to let that stuff go? He would just say, well, I push on it. He didn't have the vocabulary because he was born left brain dead. He didn't have the vocabulary to teach what it was he was doing. So after a couple of years, I would be in his class, and then as soon as the class went on break, a bunch of the other students would come around me and ask me to explain what it was he was teaching. Because literally he would just make stuff up on the fly. Like, he did not understand how he was able to do what he did. I think he understood it in terms of body language, he understood in terms of how it felt in his body, but he could not translate it into an intellectual understanding or an intellectual explanation that we can all get. So he told me to figure it out and teach it. That was in 1999. It took me a long time to figure this out. After working on hundreds of people and trying hundreds of perspectives that would help me understand what has been happening, I finally figured it out. And that's what I'm going to explain to you tonight, and I'll demonstrate it as well. But basically, what Patrick insisted I figure out is how and why our bodies store traumas and stress, and how to reverse it so that our bodies let go of old traumas and stress. Because old traumas and stress, just as a matter of course, aren't actually happening anymore. They're old, and yet they still bother us. If we see somebody that looks like that fifth grade teacher that, used to shame us in front of the whole class, we're getting stressed out because they look like that teacher. Or if we get in a similar situation to something we didn't like when we were a kid, we might get stressed out and just want to leave and not necessarily know why. But it turns out that when we're very young, no one really explained to us how to process stress, how to deal with trauma, how to deal with things we don't like, the way they feel in our body. So what we do naturally and automatically is we psychically push away the feeling of the event that we don't like. So for me, when that girl, Kara, laughed in my face, bless her soul, I felt incredible shame because I was in front of my friends. We're literally like on our way to lunch, and I have 3 friends with me, and there's Kara, and I asked her to go to the movies with me. She laughs in my face, and I go into panic and totally ashamed in front of my friends. The shame of rejection. So I had psychically pushed away that feeling of shame and then forgotten about it. And the way I did it, and the way we all do it, I believe, is we take our attention that we have right here, right now, and we used to push away this feeling we don't like, and then we pull away and we try to leave that feeling over there away from us. And what that does is it takes the event out of time. So an event that happened a long time ago, our body thinks it's still happening because we never let it end. By pushing away the feeling of it, we never let it finish. And my work, basically all I do is I look for what events that my clients have pushed away when they were children, find out what it is, and bring it back to consciousness. So the reason it's really amazing is that as soon as your body recognizes that some old event or stress happened in the past and isn't still happening now, it just drops it. That's it. It's just like that. So it's an amazing process where, say if an event is a rubber band, some event happens that you don't like, you get fired unexpectedly, say it at work. Or when you're young, maybe mom got mad at you. You don't like the feeling of it, so you push the feeling away, and that's like pushing away one side of the rubber band. As you push it away, the rubber band gets tighter and tighter and tighter. That's the tension that we feel in our body, caused by that separating out the feeling from the memory. That tension gets created. We push away the feeling of the thing we don't like, but it's still tethered to the memory. Because we never let the feeling end, our body thinks it's still happening. When our body contacts the feeling again, it recognizes when it happened and that it's not happening anymore. So typically what I do is I find an event that somebody pushed away psychically while I'm holding the person's body so that they feel the memory of it or are aware or feel the tension in their body anyway. Try to figure out what is the feeling that got pushed away a long time ago. And as soon as it's contacted, the feeling in the body and the feeling that got pushed away a long time ago come back together. And when they do, people remember, oh, this happened in 2005, or this happened when I was 12, this happened when I was 17. When we do that, when we recognize when something happened, our body says, oh, that's not happening anymore, and just drops it. So there's like, for me, because I pushed away that shame I felt from Kara rejecting me, I felt shy around women my whole life. I literally felt like every time I talked to a woman, I was being laughed at because my body thought that the laughter was still happening. As soon as Patrick found that event and brought it back to my consciousness, and I recognized when it happened, it disappeared, and my shyness completely vanished. Make sense? Okay. I told this story like 5 times this week. Any questions about that, or comments, or anything, or who here's had a session with me? Oh, okay. So did that sound like a pretty good explanation of how it works? Who's not had a session? So.
Sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. Okay.
Sounds, feels, yeah.
Good. It took me 30 years to figure out, but not because it was complicated. In 30 years, making this now at this point, it's 28. But because it's so simple. It truly is as simple as I've just explained it. Everything in life that happens, hey, you. Everything that happens in life, regardless of what it is, everything that happens has a beginning and a middle and an end. If you drive your car to the store, you start your car, that's the beginning. You drive your car across town, that's the change, right? That's what's happening. And then you shut your car off, it's over. Everything has a beginning and a middle and an end. The problem with stressful events, especially when we're toddlers or infants, is that we don't know they're going to end necessarily. And so when this feeling shows up, it does not feel good. It doesn't have to be painful. It can be emotionally difficult. It can be just this sense of like everybody else gets it except us, or we feel all alone or disconnected. That feeling does not feel good at all. So what do? We push away that feeling. It doesn't feel good. But what that does is we're pushing it away in the middle. It started, and then while it was happening, we realized we didn't like it, and so we pushed it away and never gave it the opportunity to end. So it just keeps running in the background, like these spinny wheels. And I also believe that our internal chatterbox is directly related to those things that we pushed away as children. And I say that because as I've done this work, I've suddenly found out that my mind is actually quiet. And I can think whenever I want, if I want to, but I can also just shut it off and have silence. And I once tested myself. Now, I could have had thoughts while I was sleeping, I'm not sure. But during wakeful hours, I was able to go 2 weeks in pure silence. And most of my friends didn't even notice, because it's like there's no difference. It's just Brian with the voice, Brian without the voice. It's like, who would know? Does anybody even know? Do your friends know when your chatterbox is running? Sometimes if they're close to you. I started this in '96. It wasn't until maybe 2010 that I really started to understand what it was Patrick was trying to teach. In 2012, I started teaching at Hot Springs and started doing these presentations. And I started teaching the play shop in 2013. And then in 2015, that Hot Springs burned down. And it burned down while I was taking a nap. And I was all the way in the back of the property, 1.5 miles deep into the woods. So when I woke up because the fire captain was saying, hey, there's a fire, you gotta go. And I could see smoke coming up over the hill. And so I just threw a few things in the car. And when I drove out, there was fires on both sides of the road. pretty stressful. Got to the end of the road, and there's my wife, Rose. She's in a panic. She wasn't sure I was going to make it out. We just drove like another quarter mile, parked our cars, turned around, and the fire had already gone the entire mile and a half from our cabin all the way to the front gate when we were standing. And like we had to get back to our cars. So it was 80-mile-an-hour winds. It was really crazy, really hot, and the whole place got just torched to a crisp. Then when we went to the emergency management agency to get help, they didn't believe that we had lost the house. Like it was really weird. And they asked us for our IDs. They took our IDs and they went off to the FBI tent. And then we got called to the FBI tent. And then we got interviewed. And they're like, what's your address? I'm like, what's going on? It was like, you know, we didn't know what was going on until we went back into the emergency management area. And we suddenly realized, oh my gosh, everybody in here is sad. Everybody's losing their minds about they just lost their house, they lost their dog, they can't find their car. There's all these stories swirling around the room. It's a big town. There's probably 2,000 people in this big library, all, you know, with their social workers telling the story. And Rose and I just kind of looked at each other and said, oh, wow, we're not sad. What happened was when the fire hit, because I had done this training and got my body to just let go of these old things, my body was not going to let me push away the horror of the fire. So when the fire was burning, I felt the horror of it and the fear of it and processed it. And then when the fire was over, there was no stress. It was just gone. And so Rose and I kind of looked at each other like, ooh, this is a really good play shop. Like, this is really good. The next day, when we had to go back to FEMA for our next interview, we sat in our car for a couple of minutes first, put on our sad face before going in. Because otherwise, they weren't going to believe us. That's when we realized how amazing this work is. And we're like, wow, it's too bad Patrick couldn't explain this back then. 2 years later, there was another forest fire. And again, we're a mile and a half at the end of a box canyon. And that fire, I had to drive through the fire, got into the fire, remembered that my neighbors were still sleeping up a mile and a half up in the hills. So I had to turn around, drive back to the fire, wake up my neighbors, get my cat, put a few things in the car, and then drive back to the fire to get out, which was very stressful because there were already telephone poles in the road and houses were on fire. And I had to drive by a propane tank that was so hot that the paint was bubbling. Like I drove by just praying it wasn't going to explode as I drove by. It was very stressful. We had to drive for almost a half hour to get out of the fire completely. The neighborhood where we were at was completely on fire, and it was just like flames 100 feet up in the sky on both sides of the road. But that was only 2 miles. But then we had another 10 miles to drive to get to a town that wasn't on fire, and everything was on fire, just everywhere. Not big flames, but just little flames, little spot fires everywhere. I called my friend Leslie and said, can we stay at your house? And she said, yes, got a guest room, which we already knew. But the next day I woke up in her guest room. I woke up and looked out the window and said, I don't recognize this tree. And then I remembered, oh, I'm at Leslie's house. There was a fire yesterday. Right back to sleep. No stress, no nothing, not any tension in my body from having lost everything and from nearly losing my life and the stress of the fire. That's really like confirmed what this training does. So I'm a body language trainer, not a healer. I'm into teaching you how to gain control of your body language. Because essentially what I believe has happened, I'm not a master, I'm mastering this, I'm still trying to figure out details, but it seems that when we're young, we push away these feelings we don't like, these things we don't want to feel, whether they're emotional or intellectual or corporal or whatever. Push away a feeling we don't like, then it becomes, our subconscious believes that event is perpetual. And then it continues to stress us out, just in daily life without us even realizing what's going on. That is a program. It's not hardwired. It's not like that has nothing to do with what it means to be a human. That's just an error in the way we've kind of programmed ourselves when we were too young to know better. That program gets replayed today as adults. Something happens we don't want to feel, and there's this automatic response of push away the feeling. I don't like it. that is what creates stress in the body, and it's what creates secondary issues. Like for me, my secondary issue was shyness around women. And I didn't even know I was shy. I just thought women didn't like me. So I never talked to them because I was just sure they're going to start laughing in my face. When you start to notice, and this is the value of doing this training work. Every time you do a session, you feel what it feels like in your body to let something go. Everybody who's had a session with me has let something go, and you know what it feels like in your body to let something go. And as you repeat this, you get more detail. You start to feel more detail about what that feels like, and you start to notice when you're holding things. I had only 3 or 4 sessions with Patrick. That was at my friend's house in Philly. My friend Ryan, we're sitting around, we're probably smoking weed, but we're sitting around the table, and he's like, you know what, we should open a healing center in Philadelphia. And I said, Philadelphia doesn't deserve healing. And when I said it, I felt these earrings up here, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really charged on Philly. I was like, I was able to realize, oh, I've got something charged up in my past. And I noticed that my shoulders were tight. And as soon as I recognized that, my shoulders relaxed, and I suddenly felt relief in my body. I felt lighter. And I realized, oh, I had been holding on to this need for revenge. Like I thought Philadelphia wronged me. I let that go on the fly, in the moment, as it happened. And so he said, this is how fast it was. He said, we should open a healing center in Philadelphia. I said, Philadelphia doesn't deserve healing. Oh my gosh, wow, did you see that? Yeah, wow, okay, let's open a healing center in Philadelphia. And that was the entire conversation. It was that fast. What happened, I think I only ever had 6 sessions with Patrick. But what's happened for me now is that when something stressful happens, I run it, I process it, and just deal with it, and then it's over. And my wife says I'm like a drama queen sometimes. But when things get resolved and you live through them until they're over, and you just feel it, and then it's over, then it's actually over. And the feeling or the sensation that didn't feel good about that event is gone. And that's the beautiful part of this work. It literally retrains your body to not push things away. So that when you do get stressed out, when something happens that doesn't feel good, you just process it and run it. And then when it's over, you feel like yourself again. The reward for doing this work is you start making better choices in life. And you can't help it. Like it's just an automatic reward. We've all made the best possible choice for ourselves every single time based on the information we had back then. We always make the best choice for ourselves based on the information we have. That can be hard to believe because we can all look in our history and say, oh man, I can't believe I made that choice. But back then you didn't have the information that you have now. If you look in your history and you see mistakes, that means you've grown and you have new information. Everybody get that? Is that cool? So what happens with this work is, because it's attention that holds those old feelings at bay, when you stop holding old feelings at bay, all that attention that you've been using to hold things out of your consciousness gets returned to you to use right here, right now. And what literally happens is it feels like your blinders open up, like you just start noticing more information. And it's a great reward because when you notice more information, you make better choices. Like it's truly that simple. And more information, emotional information, you can start feeling more empathy, more skills like understanding. There's all kinds of amazing things that can happen when you have more attention for right here, right now. So you've heard the phrase be here now, right? Like that really is the key. Being here now really is the key to happiness and feeling the love and like all the magical stuff is all right here, right now. But it's hard to feel the unconditional love, and it's hard to tap into the magic of the world if our minds are spinning wheels about stuff that happened a long time ago. Or if our minds are spinning an issue based on something that happened a long time ago. Make sense? Anybody feeling guilty? Maybe not triggering anybody too bad, I hope. What's your name? Yes. Pete. Pete.
Mm.
You said you want to try this? You want to be the volunteer today?
Oh yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Hey, come on up. You're the next contestant on YBML.
The last 2 days, I just had a stiff neck. It's easy now.
Is it easy?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm on a different big very cool stuff. Very good.
Is that all right if I work on you?
Next step, yeah.
Okay.
Different ways of doing that. Still stuff. But there are.
Well, do I lay down? Yes, lay in your back, have your feet off this end. I don't know where my. Hang on to. Thank you for being brave, Pete.
That's the story.
My what?
The story, your story.
Oh, this is all right. Good. Well, you might have one by the time we're done. All right. So all I'm going to do here is reach in under Pete's wings. And by wings, I mean shoulder blade. And I'm going to feel the tight muscle under there. And I'm looking for the tight muscle. I got it. You feel that tension right there? Is it a bit? A little bit?
Yeah.
I can pull it harder if you like.
Yeah, you can. Well, I mean,
There you go. No, you're good. You feel that spot right there?
not as a pressure point, when you feel points.
Uh-huh.
I can feel it
You feel the tension that the muscle is a little tight?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, good. Have you, when you were young, did you feel like you had a hard time being recognized? Or like getting recognition for what you do? Do you feel that way today?
I'd say no.
But when you were young?
Oh, when I was young, probably had a whole list of, yes. I mean, internally, I ventured into similar stuff with an agency when I was 17, 43, 44 years ago.
Well,
So,
feel that muscle there.
in his, youngest of 6,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, not
Did you feel invisible in the family sometimes?
um,
Other people hadn't got more attention than you? There, feel the muscle. Just feel it.
out for the muscle.
Yeah. When was that? You know what age you were?
It's not the kind of sort of thing, but probably a lot of food our childhood. On some level, we didn't want to go through so another value of the system. That was in the book of food values and what things you didn't do, what things you obviously they quite changes you.
What about feeling invisible? When was that? Ask yourself, when did I feel invisible?
I mean, okay, 14 comes to mind. I'm just trying out what
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
to mind.
Feel the muscle. There you go. You just put a date on it.
Yeah.
There you go. Feel it? Feel it move? That's not me. That's your muscle relaxing. There you go.
Okay, wow.
Does that feel different?
Yeah, that was quite amazing.
Okay. Good. So what I do is I find the tightness and I pull it out to where it's on the edge of the scapula or the shoulder blade. And then we talk. And as soon as he contacts why the muscle's tight and says when it was, so as soon as we started talking about invisibility, the muscle started moving. So I knew that was the issue. When you started talking about the other thing, like getting smothered by your sisters, the muscle stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as soon as I said invisible again, the muscle started moving. As soon as you said it happened when I was 14, that put the end on it. That put the stop to it. And then the muscle went into bug.
Yeah. And that's just the first age that came to mind.
Well, when you ask yourself a question, your body never lies. The right answer bubbles up. And you know it's the right answer because it's the answer that relaxed your body.
Since you've done that, though, it feels like it shifted over there.
Well, does this side feel flat around the table than
It
that
feels
side?
really nice.
Yeah.
And it's in the same spot on the other side. It was like I got a knot there now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, like I spend my day going back and forth, back and forth. It's all good. As soon as you feel even, we're done. Nope. Ignore that because you'll never tell me that you're even. So. Oh. That's pretty good. Was your dad pretty tough?
And few step-downs, yes.
And they were tough on you?
I would say, yeah, tough and abusive.
Abusive too.
Yeah.
What years was that?
What I remember is 3.
Starting at 3.
It might have been
That's good. Feel the muscle.
um,
You said 3, it's starting to move.
yeah, to my awareness, I would say it started from what I know in terms of going back, I would say from 2.
From 2, okay. And then, and when did it end? When you moved out?
I would say that particular step down 5.
Okay, and the next one?
The next step.
When did you use that?
He wasn't really from what I was aware of, wasn't too
Okay, we feel the muscle.
yeah, I can.
I see. When did the abuse end?
Um, I mean, like I say, on that one really wasn't consciously abusive, but the character. So he left when I was about 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was another one?
No.
Okay.
I would say the main one would have been that they already visited the stepdad when I was 1 to 5.
Okay. So that's when the abuse
I
really
would
ended?
say that was the most dramatic.
Okay.
Or impact.
There it is. Feel the muscle.
So, you know,
That's simply your body recognizing that the abuse ended. It's over. There's nothing to cope with anymore. It's just gone. It's still moving. There you go.
equals lots of different.
Yeah, there you go. Boom.
Okay.
So my job there is to keep my fingers perfectly still so that your muscle can relax on its own. How does it feel?
We got felt with here.
Okay, how about you stand up and show people what they look like now?
Should have done it before, no?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. However, your partner is aware of any changes. You notice a shift? And do you notice a shift?
A little bit.
I do actually, definitely, yeah. Where I'm at the moment, energetically, it's this supported. Yeah, that felt very profound with the different dream stuff I do.
Hey.
You look
younger and bright.
Thank you. Thank you.
You look younger and bright. Do I? Okay. Brilliant. So, thank you for being brave and coming up.
You're welcome, that's great.
That's what cable training looks like. So what we just did is you're starting to learn how your old upsets that you pushed away as a child are impacting your body language today. And if you do more of it, what happens is your body recognizes how it works. Your body starts to recognize that real stress happening right now feels differently than old stress that's not happening anymore. Regurgitated, replayed stress feels completely different than real-time, real-world stress that's still happening. And once your subconscious gets that difference, while you're dreaming, it'll start flushing out old stuff that's not serving you anymore. And it's weird. It's not too weird. You never get ungrounded, but I've had several experiences of waking up in the morning and feeling different and feeling happier, not knowing why. And then realizing, oh, I'm just not mad at my mom anymore. That's weird. Got plenty of reasons to be mad at her. Okay. That's the joy of the work, is that we're training our subconscious to do body language differently, to do stress differently. And the joy is, the reward is that you end up being here now automatically. Just can't help it. Just can't help it. It becomes your natural state. Because it's the old things we pushed away that distract us, that pull our attention out of the moment. Make sense? Okay. Any questions? Comments?
But like you said, they just become running programs, don't they? So everything becomes the reality is of all the old programs. It's just stopping from being, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens is when you take away the reason for a program goes away.
Mm.
So my program was I had to be shy around women to protect myself from feeling shame, from being laughed at, right? So my body ran the shyness nonsense.
Mm.
As soon as I dropped my reasons for being shy, the shyness went away. There was nothing to cope with, nothing to figure out, nothing I had to like, meditate about or anything else. It just changed.
Mm.
That's the fun part about this work is because of that, it doesn't take much effort. It doesn't take 10 hours of forgiveness practice to feel better. Well, any more questions? Comment? I'm still here for a couple days. You can still get on the table. I think Sunday morning I have free slots. I'm also teaching classes this weekend. If you'd like to get on the table and try this, I'm having a wing release party tomorrow night. And that's when you get to do this in group. It's kind of like you're doing right now, but it's less of me talking and more of everybody being on the table and everybody gets a turn. And that's probably the easiest way to get a session out because I do the Tuesday. Monday's my day off. I've not been to the Abbey yet. It's my third trip to Glastonbury. I was at the Abbey for 10 minutes with Andrina for a podcast, but didn't need to walk around. So that's it. Carol, would you like to read your phone?
Could you just say what the rest of the programs are, just go into a bit more detail? I know the wing release, but the other things you're doing.
Oh, sure. So tomorrow I'm teaching Energy Works, which is not related to this directly at all. Energy Works is all about how to move energy, and energy, I don't mean cheap, I mean that's included everything from money and understanding, love, empathy, food, everything's energy. So Energy Works is about learning how to draw your choices to you rather than putting energy out and trying to grab them. Because everybody's, you ever play this game, you go out and try to get what you want and it just keeps feeling further and further away. The Energy Works teaches you how to sit still and let your choices come to you. And that one is 2 to 5, and that involves me talking a little bit, but mostly partnered exercises and doing fun stuff. Then 7 and 9 is the wing release party, which is it's limited to 10 people. I'm not sure how many people are signed up, but that's where we do what we're doing tonight. Everybody gets a chance to be on the table. And then Sunday, I'm teaching a play shop review for people who've already done my play shop. It's probably too late to watch the play shop videos and then come Sunday, but if you feel brave and you'd like to learn the information really quickly and like get it while I'm here, Sunday from 2 to 4, I think, or 1 to 2 to 4. I'm going over the play shop lessons to make sure that the people who've done it really get it and using it. The play shop unravels why, as children, we psychically pushed away those feelings we don't like. There's a specific reason. We've all got the same exact reason why we did it. And yeah, it's that it didn't feel good. And there's a meditation I figured out that every time you don't feel good, like you're just walking up the street and suddenly you don't feel like all that great about yourself or about life or anything else, you do this little meditation and it pops you out of whatever funk is being pushed down on you from your history. That unravels why table training works. That unravels why you push things away, and it also teaches your body to let that stuff go. The meditation only takes a couple seconds, but you have to do it every day. And if you do within a few weeks, and certainly within a few months, things don't bother you anymore. They just won't. And when they do, you do the meditation, like, oh, that meditation teaches your body why it's been holding on, why it holds on to trauma and stress. And it also teaches your body that that's not necessary, and your body will start letting stuff go on its own. I've had people do the play shop, like Arlen's in here. Arwen back there, she's on faculty. So Arwen joined me online and only did my classes online for a whole year before she got on the table. Isn't that true? And then the play shop, I clear out most of, I know you were pretty excited to get on the table when you finally met me. But
Yeah,
yeah, you were. But the play shop cleared out a lot of,
I've got loads of stuff out before.
yeah.
For meeting you in person.
Well, the story you tell about being in that fire that didn't bother you, right? Wasn't that before I even met you?
No, it was after.
It was? Oh, okay. Anyway, the play shop works in a different way, but it works on the same mechanism, just in a different way. And that's what's happening Sunday. So I also have an online school. In the online school, you can learn everything I teach except how to do the wing releases. I teach that live. And I'll teach it live next time I come, and you can learn next time I'm here. I've got 3 people here learning it. Rick, raise your hand. And Arwen. Martin's learning too. She's not convinced yet that he's going to be a body worker, but he's willing to learn how to do it. And he's like, well, that's better than this morning. You were like not in at all this morning. Martin's the online librarian, which has been very, if you're into esoteric knowledge, into like finding out all kinds of things, it's all cataloged at my school in the library. The library Martin's created this vast, what would we call it? Sinkhole? Sinkhole? A sinkhole of curated knowledge. Yeah, I mean, you can, if you fall in, you can get stuck. It's so interesting. And Arwen has been on faculty for about a year now, 6 months or a year. Okay, so Arwen and I both have offices online. If you've got questions about any classes, you just join the campus, you can ask us. When I'm in Glastonbury, I do live events. When I'm home, I take care of my 4-year-old daughter and I take care of my online school. So if you're online and you have a question, I can almost answer it usually within just a few minutes. Anytime somebody asks a question on my school, I get an alert on my phone. So I can usually jump in really fast. And yeah, that's my story.
Was it time different?
8 hours. Right. So if you want to meet at 6 o'clock in the evening, it's like 10 in the morning for me. It works. Carol, you want to read your phone?
I'm hobbling.
You are hobbling. What happened?
Yes. My sister tried to kill me. 16 she ran over my foot.
Oh my gosh.
But unfortunately, still in shock. She's in shock. I've just written a very quick one before I tell you the one I did the other day. When you ask the right questions, the answer bubbles up because your body never lies and can store your troubles up. So when you ask the right question, the body gets ready to shift, and flushing out old tensions can really give you a lift. It brings you back to the present, to today, the here and now. So if you'd like to learn it, join the college and find out how. This is the one I wrote the other day. Now, in Glastonbury, we're used to the wise, the wonderful, the wacky, and anything. So this is a little bit of writer's license. Okay. Well, that Brian Snyder took off like a glider when he released his wings last week. The traffic all stopped. People rushed out of the shops. And many of them started to shriek. To the sky they all looked. Lots of photos they took. And people climbed on top of their cars. And from high up in the sky, Brian waved them goodbye and was last seen heading to Mars.
That was interesting. Thank you. I didn't expect that. Okay, so that's it for today. If you'd like to have a chance on the table, you can join the wing release party if there is still slots for tomorrow night, or there might be some slots on Sunday. Otherwise, I'd love to see you when I come back, or you can join the online school and we can chat there. You can do the play shop. If you'd really like to be here now, if you'd really like to have a body that doesn't carry around old trauma, so that you can truly just be yourself. This work, I've had people say, well, you know, am I still going to be the same? Yes. This does not change who you are. It just takes away the parts of you that bother you, that don't even feel like you. You know, like the shyness. That was so weird that I was shy for so long. This does not get rid of any memories. I have all of my memories. In fact, my memories are a lot better now than they were when I was 20. Stuff that happened to me when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old was so traumatic that I didn't even just blocked out from my consciousness until I was in my 30s and doing this work and peeling off layers until I got to a place where I could suddenly remember what happened when I was a little kid. And now I've got all those memories, but there's no charge on them. There's no charge. I was an American kid living in France. My father wanted to be rich, so he decided he'd work for a company that would send him to France and pay him a lot of money. But we lived in a place where there were no other American kids. And I'm like 4 years old and being kicked out of the house to go play with the neighborhood kids without really knowing the language and anything else. And so I got picked on. I was, you know, I was the odd man out. So I physically abused, sexually abused, tortured. I mean, and I'm making it sound worse than it was. Whatever, obviously I survived. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there's no way that I would be able to stand up here and say that I was abused as I was a child. Because the charge was so strong, like I would just be ashamed, I wouldn't want to share, because oh, now you're going to pick up damaged goods, there's something wrong with me. All these people are going to know that I'm less than they are. Like all those thoughts and charges are gone. And you can all have it. Because all those things that happened to us are over. The charge that we feel on our old memories that we don't like, that charge is because we push the feeling of the memory away. But what's reflecting back and what feels like the emotional charge, the hook somebody called it, it's literally the fact that it's not where it belongs. If it was where it belonged, it wouldn't be out here in the ethers or in your aura. It would just be in your history. Not bothering us. When I said earlier that we take our attention and push these things away we don't like, and then we pull back. But when we pull back, we leave some of our attention there to hold the thing at bay. And that's the charge. That's the charge reflecting back. That's the good news. We did it. It's not somebody else who did it. We did it. That's good news. That means that you can undo it. You don't need somebody else's permission or somebody else's forgiveness. You create the charge, you can undo it. And when you do, the charge goes away, and then it's just a memory. It's just a picture in your head without any meaning to it or emotional charge. I mean, that's really the word, emotional charge. I'm glad you shut up, even though you were late. Good evening to you.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I was about to ask a question, actually.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
How does this work with generational trauma?
Yes, because we pass those things on, not through our genes, but through our behavior.
Mm.
So it's, yeah, I mean, I've seen it. But if I'm working on somebody here on the table, they need to let go of what their parents did to them, not what their grandparents did to their parents. It's their parents that have to let go of what their grandparents did to them. You know? Does that make sense? The other thing is, like, I'm not a master at this. I'm still unraveling some things and trying to figure it all out. Like, I've caught myself with generational trauma with my dog. Like, here I am. I think I'm totally healed because I've healed all these things. And yet, man, if she pisses me off, I'll say some things that I never wanted my dad to say to me. You know? Like, it's stressful. It's totally stressful for me because I recognize it as, oh, that's my great-great-grandfather pushing crap down through the ages. Still working on it. I'm a much better dad today than I would have been had I not done this training, I guarantee. But also, we get stressed out and then it goes. Yeah, I'm going out.
Would you like a testimony? Short testimony?
Sure.
because I came to you when you were last here.
In
Probably
November.
don't remember me because you did so many things, but, and very quickly as I lay on the table, I just had a thought. I didn't voice it, but I had a thought of when I was hit in school for making, you know, for making a mistake, a
Mhm.
stupid mistake, and whether it was maths or spelling. And so that memory came as you were holding, and then I felt the release coming and everything flattening out.
Mhm.
And then when I got off the table, I felt really like my wings had kind of expanded. And my feet, I felt I was walking on foam this high. And I was just walking around in this wonderful place. And, you know, I did ground after that. But since then, I realized that it had a very significant shift, because now it doesn't matter if I don't get it right, I don't say the right things at all. So really, just that one session was really, really valuable for me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
You said that you only had about 6 sessions with Patrick.
Mhm.
So how have you been working on this, like releasing for yourself? Can you do it on your own?
You can make me share my secrets.
That's what I'm here for.
So the big bonus for me when I work on somebody else is I get a healing too. So, and the other thing I've discovered is that people usually don't let go of things in my presence unless I either have to let them go myself or I've already let them go myself. So, lots of people came to see me this week. I've talked about their perfectionism. Perfectionism, that's when you look to see what's wrong so you can fix it. That's what a perfectionist does. You look to see what's wrong so we can fix it. So I'm guilty. I've had that in my history, and lots of people who came to me this week, like that came up. I do other techniques too. So I've spent years in breathwork, rebirthing. So sometimes I'll do breathing exercises if I feel stuck in that way. I've also had 3 interns right now. So they will be working on me all weekend for all the sessions I've not had for the last 20 years. That's been really good. But how I clear out myself mostly is through the contact. My empathy, I think because of the abuse I endured as a kid, my empathy skills are really high. I get like hypersensitive, like around that. So it's easier for me to feel what's going on with somebody. And I can almost always feel how it's an analog to what I went through. In my experience, you know, pretty much everybody's mother ignored them. And everybody's dad was at work and too busy to play. That was my experience. And I get that my experience was not exactly the same as everybody else's. But when we're children and we want to play and we want to hang out with somebody, we don't understand that mom has to cook dinner. She doesn't have time, and dad has to go to work. Otherwise, you're not going to have a place to live. Right? Those are like these considerations that we don't know as kids. So when we're 3 or 4, or maybe even 5, if mom doesn't have time to play, that's stressful. Like that feels like, well, we're not important. And then that gets to be a feeling that we push away. Or dad doesn't have time to throw the ball. That happened to me plenty of times. Dad didn't have time to play with me. That made me feel like he didn't like me. Oh, true, I think. That he didn't like me. But, you know, I see myself in all my clients. And I don't try to. It's just like what comes out. It's like almost every session. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Oh yeah, I know this one. So I feel the relief myself. And it's not like this is not work for me. At the end of the day, my fingers are a little tired from this, but energetically, like I feel like I could go for another 20 hours. I'm like, yeah. Now you can't all come up here because my fingers really are sore. It's just about the fingers. Does that answer it?
Yeah,